Hello, and welcome to the Small Business Tax Savings Podcast, powered by Jetro and Associates. Get ready for another action-packed episode from our team that will help you save time, taxes, and keep more money in your pocket.
Hello and welcome back, small business owners, and thank you for tuning in to the Small Business Tax Savings Podcast. My name is Mike Jesowshek. I am a CPA and founder over at Jetro, which is a digital accounting firm servicing small business owners exclusively, helping them with bookkeeping, taxes, and payroll. On today's show, we have two very special guests, Jackie Brajner and Fred Varin. Fred is the president and founder of Topline Results, which is where he is dedicated to delivering outstanding CRM solutions to organizations worldwide. Fred has a passion for teaching workplace productivity techniques, business analytics, and the importance of business goal setting. Jackie is the Chief Marketing Officer of Topline Results and is the lead consultant for marketing integration with CRM. Fred and Jackie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, I'm really kind of excited to talk about some of the things that you guys are bringing to the table today. I think it's really good for our small business listeners. So just to get started, I want to go through our quick fire intro questions to get our audience a little bit of general idea of what you guys, a little bit about your background and what we're going to be talking about today. So the first question is, why do you do what you do?
Well, that's a really good question and really gets to the why we do things. And we love to delight our customers, of course, but what we do is to be more productive. Personally, I started in sales a long time ago after I graduated, and I had no system. But when I figured out that there were systems like contact management and later CRM, that's where I started to really love the technology to leverage my contact with the people I need to contact, which were my customers. And that really helped me develop a really good sales tactic and strategy to reach my customer when I was supposed to reach them. And later, that was a great source of contacts or data to reach out. And at the time we were doing mailings, now we do emails and other things with the database, but it's a great platform to also do marketing. And in the end, we do what we do because it helps businesses increase their top line, which is their revenue.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. What is one ritual that helps you become better at what you do?
Should I say meditation?
Meditation or medication?
For me personally, I rely on the CRM database a lot to look at our metrics and really look at the numbers that are coming in, whether it's with our marketing or our sales, even what our service people are doing. I look at the metrics, then I can manage off those metrics. So we do a lot where we're reviewing pipelines, looking at what kind of revenue is coming in, looking at what kind of activity is taking place, because that's all inside of the database. So ritual for us is, for me personally, is I start my day in my CRM database looking at dashboards and metrics and then work my day off that. That's how I work.
Yeah. And I would actually second that. As the leader of a small company, I still look a lot at overall sales. And what I look on a regular basis is my own pipeline, my own opportunities, and the pipeline of the other people who do sell in our company. So we have regular meetings on a weekly basis for just that. And in our staff meeting, another meeting that we do on a regular basis, we use a CRM to produce the report that provides where we are on each projects that we do. So CRM is not just about selling or marketing. It's also about recording for us what we do for the customer and know where we are in their project.
Yeah, no, that's great. So, you're talking about this app that you guys are using. What is that app or system that you're using to stay in control of your workload?
So at our company, we have used just about all the CRMs that we have consulted on. The one that we use currently is called Microsoft Dynamics 365 CRM, and it's online.
Okay.
And but we do also or have used other systems like Act, and we also provide consulting for Zoho and Salesforce.
Got it.
We
Now,
have two offerings.
what is one book, podcast, or blog that you would recommend and why?
We love books. We have a reading club at Topline Results. So right now we're reading What Got You Here Won't Get You There. So that's one that we're reading right now as a company, and we do this just as a normal book club where we read a different book each quarter. And those are either picked by the leadership team or by some of the leaders like Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates, and we pick some of their favorite readings. But that's one that we're reading right now. But you are an avid reader, and everyone in this company has to read Dale Carnegie. That is like a prerequisite to working here, is you need to know Dale Carnegie, you need to read Dale Carnegie, and everyone does it here.
That's awesome. I love the idea of getting the whole team reading, a similar book. That might be one I steal.
Yeah,
we like it.
How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie is decades old, yet it has all the fundamentals you need to be good at relationships. And quite frankly, I started a company taking all their classes 20 years ago and got me to the top salesperson in the country for one of the pieces of software that we were selling at the time called Act.
Awesome. All right. So, as we kind of get into the main interview, just give us a little insight about what topics you're going to be focusing on for this main interview and where we're going to go with it.
We're going to be focusing on kind of what is CRM, and then also on the end of what is digital marketing. So looking at what can you do as far as a small business with a CRM database, as well as what you should be looking at for digital marketing when you're a small business too.
Okay, awesome. And I think that's all really good information, and it's going to be super valuable for our clients or our listeners today. We have our listeners they're all small business owners, and they come from all different sizes, shapes, and parts of the country. And so I think that CRM's one area where there's a lot of questions on. People don't really know what a CRM is, and that's why I'm really excited to have you guys on. So let's get started with that CRM concept, and then we'll get into the digital marketing a little bit later. But as far as the CRM, what is CRM? What does it stand for? What does it mean for a small business?
CRM is an acronym for Customer Relationship Management Software, and it's essentially a tool, which is a database with a front end that helps you put in the database what is needed to drive your sales, drive your marketing, and drive your customer service, among other things that you can customize to do with a CRM. Like maybe you want to track inventory in your CRM, or maybe you want to track your goals in the CRM. So it's a platform, and it used to be that CRM was a piece of software on your premise, on your server, and that's no longer the case. CRM generally is hosted by a provider in the cloud, like Dynamics 365, like Salesforce, like Zoho. They're all solutions that you can access from anywhere on your phone, on your computer, on your tablet.
When I talk to a small business about what is CRM, and they're usually using like Excel spreadsheet or email, the way that I explain it to them is it's really about having a piece of software that shows your different relationships, right? And it's much bigger than Excel, because on Excel, it's very flat. You can only see the name, the email, the company, right? Where inside of a CRM database, it's relational. So we can start to have those connections. We can connect where there's an opportunity, or we can connect the referrals, or we can connect that these two companies know each other. And we can start to see this kind of view of how people are all related and how you can work with those different people, as well as the historical information. So if you have a new employee come on, it's not, here's a spreadsheet with the information. It's, here's the entire history of the relationship we have with this company. So they can start on day 60 versus day 0. with that customer and start using that information so that customers have to repeat themselves and they know the full history. It's also very relational, and you can integrate different systems inside of a CRM database. So you can pull in email systems, you can pull in your accounting systems and have all of that work together. So it can act as a hub for all this information to flow. And that's where a lot of data is going, is how do we make this information speak, and how do we have this flow and interchange of data is what it can do too.
Yeah, no, that's great. And, kind of following up on that, I think where there comes a lot of confusion is there's so many CRMs out there, so many options available. Some of them are just so complex. And so who needs a CRM? Is it a certain amount of employees that you have, a certain amount of revenue that you have, where you say, yeah, you need a CRM? Is it made for everybody? Give us some insights on kind of who you would recommend a CRM system to.
Well, you can start as a single user of a CRM. You do not need to have a team to use a CRM. And in fact, that's the way I started. What was important to me is to stay organized and know when to do the proper follow-up. In our company, I use CRM personally is a little bit different when I use a CRM for the team, where I can actually see what other accounts we're on, what's coming and what's going. So it helps you to manage the business at a higher level too, not just for me as an individual. But to answer your question, everyone has a CRM already today, whether it's an Excel sheet or it's Outlook or whatnot. It's just that it's not called a CRM because it doesn't have the connection that Jackie's talking about. It doesn't give you the full view. It may be in an Excel sheet here and an Outlook there, but CRM unifies this all together, and it is a hub.
Yeah, and we have customers that are single users that just started a business, that they use CRM to really get their business off the ground, and they bring in all of their potential customers, but then they can start doing their email marketing. They can pull in their accounting, see how their relationships are, and you get a total view of the customer instead of seeing this very small piece. You get a total view of the relationship. So anyone that wants to understand their relationships better, want to be able to do reporting, analytics, understand how they can move that needle, is someone that could use CRM. And we have customers that are single users to hundreds of users at all different sizes that we support and work with and see value.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And do you think that you kind of mentioned that Excel is technically a CRM? Do you think that that's a valid option for certain businesses at certain sizes, or it's really just kind of a case-by-case basis? Would you always recommend everyone be in some kind of a little bit more of a robust type system out of the gate?
It's a little bit when you start a company and you start doing accounting on an Excel sheet, you quickly realize that you need something a little bit more robust, maybe QuickBooks to get you started than the Excel sheet. If your business is very, very, very small and you only have one or two clients, the Excel sheet probably will be okay. Mm-hmm. But as soon as you have a multitude of customers and you want a little bit more visual on the relationship we have with all those customers, you can't retain it all in your brain. Mm-hmm. It has to go somewhere. Yeah. And that's why you need a good tracking system that does help you not just to track, but also to follow up. That looks in the past, that also looks in the future.
Yeah. And, one thing that, as you mentioned that, I think everyone starts, when they're starting small, everyone starts small traditionally, unless you're buying into something. And you think the Excel's fine, but then you get to a point where the Excel's not good enough anymore, but you're too deep into it, and it makes that transition a little bit harder. So, I think we ran into that ourselves. We see clients run into that where they have one solution that was great when they started out, but that solution is far out, they're far outgrowing that solution now. And now it's kind of that hard transition to get into it. So does that happen from CRM to CRM? So let's say you're on a basic CRM package, and also now your business is grown much more. Now you need to be a more robust CRM package. Do you see that kind of thing happen in the same area there as when you go from Excel to a CRM, from CRM to CRM?
Well, that's why we have really long-term relationships with our clients, is we look at that and help guide them through that and say, where you're at today, where do you want to be? And we assess that with them on an annual basis at a minimum to make sure that that package is still working for them, and to say, are you getting the analytics you need? Is it meeting all of your needs for marketing? Is it meeting all your needs for your process? But you see that with any product. And the thing that makes our job so fun is technology is always changing. So we always have all these new features, all these new things. How can we connect different things? I'll let you go ahead and answer that too.
We have three things that we do mostly with CRM at the center. One is we look at your business and what are the processes that you are using, and how can CRM help with those processes. So if you have a system, CRM, that is kind of an older system that needs to be updated, we will look at that. The second part is also looking at the digital marketing, and the third part is CRM itself. When you move from one system to another one, we can take the data and put them into the other system. But of course, for the user, it's going to look different. If they're going to have to click differently, they are probably going to be a little bit confused in the beginning, and there will be a learning curve. I have to say, I've seen people doing very well with one, and then when it became web-based, they were kind of, oh, I don't really like it that much. And they've gone back, and it didn't work out for them. But for the majority, once you are in a web-based place and you can share your data so easily with other people, and you can do it from so many devices, and it's easy to access everything. You don't have to install anything on your computer. There's a lot of benefits in moving forward with the technology and get it up to date. The CRM that was in year 2000 is different from the CRM today, but fundamentally, it's a lot of the same. It's a lot of the same.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And so you mentioned one process that you do is you look at the processes and things that the business is doing, and then you kind of find out what's a good fit for a CRM. What are some things that a CRM can do for a small business? So what are some of those things that the CRM does for business owners?
Well, it will formalize your sales process in a way, because you know where to find your accounts, you know where to find the contacts at those accounts, and you will know what opportunities you have for these accounts. And for each opportunity that you're working on, now this is assuming that you don't sell tiny little widgets that have small value. We're talking about maybe some bigger items or more costly items, so that it's worthwhile tracking that opportunity. But for each opportunity, you may have a certain amount of steps that you do, and they don't have to be a lot of different steps. It could be, for us, for example, qualify, present, and then also quote, and then we close. So we can have those 4 steps. So you can actually formalize your sales process. These are the people I'm closing this month, and you can be more focused on the sales that you are working on. And these are the people you will be calling first thing in the morning, if that's the people on your list and on your pipeline.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Focus is really an important concept in CRM.
I think focus, then visibility. So it gives you real visibility into your business, not only what's happening with your customers, but also what's happening with your employees, and also what you're doing. So you can do a lot with KPIs, key performance indicators, and get really good visibility into what's going on, as well as forecasting. You can do a lot of forecasting with CRM. And just getting that visibility is really key in one spot that you can pull up on your cell phone in bed at night at 10:30. So you can look at any time and get that visibility.
I know what you're referring to.
I know.
So you mentioned sales. Heavy in sales is when you take CRM, you think sales. Can it also be as part of the business operations? So I think traditionally people think CRM, sales, project management is maybe actually running your business. Can they sometimes be combined or used in one system? Are those terms sometimes interchangeable?
Yes. And the reason is because most CRM are customizable. So you can create what we call entities in a CRM or an object that allows you to track something that in your business is really important. Like I mentioned earlier, the inventory part, or maybe for us, it's our projects. So when we close an opportunity, we create a new project in the CRM.
Mm-hmm.
And in the CRM, we have, for the project, we have different milestones. Each milestone now has activities that are standardized. So when we create a project, we have all the milestones and we all have the activities already there. Now, not all projects are the same, and a lot of them are actually all different. But if you have that template for that project and you go back and say, oh, that milestone we don't need, you just delete it. That's it. It's just a matter of clicking and delete it. But now you have customized your project for that customer. Project management is not part of standard CRM, but you can easily roll out a project management module inside CRM.
Mm-hmm. And time tracking. A lot of customers do time tracking in there for different services. So you can do time tracking in there. We have people that do that are ISO certified that keep their survey results in there and keep all of that information. People that do their different products, what products customers are using, all different types of things. And customer service is a huge part of it, as well as project management and operations for sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's great to see that indication, is because for, let's say, a really small business, when you're first starting out, you might say, I don't need a CRM for sales. But at the same time, if you're doing project management, you need to track what needs to be done for a client, that's could be included in there and they can easily integrate together. So why not have a one-stop solution that has both of those kind of outputs from it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, CRM from 2000 to 2019 now. There's obviously been a lot of change, and you said, the focus or the core is always the same. But how has CRM changed, within the past 20 years?
It used to be that I was doing most of my business synchronizing databases because inherently salespeople are nomadic. They go in the field, they go knock on doors, and they're not in the office. And so back then, it was just as important as it is today to have your database where you are. But the way you were getting access to your database was vastly different. We were sending little sync packets back and forth between databases, which was updating the local database from the centralized database. Okay. And so all the salespeople would send those sync packets because they have their data on their laptop, and the internet wasn't fast enough to have quick access to a web-based CRM. Today, you can be at Starbucks, you can set your phone on tethering and have access to your CRM, and it will be fast, even on a cell phone using your computer. Or you can go on your phone itself and open the app and have access to all your data right there on the app. Yeah. Accessibility has changed vastly since. It was available 20 years ago. It was just more difficult to achieve smoothness in the process because of some of the technological hurdles of synchronizing database. It would sometimes go out of sync and then we had to resynchronize. And it was a little bit of a kludgy way to access the data then. Today, it's very real time and very easy to get to.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I've only been on the block for 11 years, so not as long as Brad. But for me, how I've seen it change in the last years is really it becoming that hub of interchanging the data. So people wanting to have more data in the system, using that as their main area where they can get a full view of what's going on. That's what's really changed for me in the last 11 years, is using it as a total solution in a lot of ways.
And integrate with digital marketing platforms.
It's a huge thing for that.
Yeah, makes sense. And so, kind of the last piece on the CRM side, is there any tips that you guys have for kind of getting the most out of your CRM?
You want to go first?
No, you can.
You want me to go first?
Yes, sure.
Thanks, Fred. My biggest tip is when you're implementing is to have the end in means. So what kind of reports do you want to get out? What kind of analytics do you want to get out? When I meet with a customer, it's all about what at the end of the day do you want to get out of the system? Because that's how we're going to build the system. So if you're thinking about going into CRM, or you're saying, I have a problem with my database today, you should say, what is it that I want to get out at the end of the day? What kind of reports do I want to be able to see? Because that's going to say what we need to change about your process, what we need to change about how you implement. The number one issue with CRM is always, and this is with any technology, is user adoption. So having a plan in place on how you're going to address individual users' issues. What we've seen work really well at different businesses is having kind of a committee or a user group that helps implement it from different areas of the business. So they have different viewpoints on how it can work. I've also seen where people pair up different people. So you have in your organization, you might have someone that's more tech savvy and another person that's not. And pairing those people together to work on using CRM when you first roll it out has also worked really well for people. I've seen that work very well.
Yeah, I think that's great. Just thinking about that ahead of time is because you might be the person that's making the decision to start the CRM and go into this certain direction. And you might fall in love with the CRM, love what it's going to make, but not everyone's going to have that same picture perfect and be able to see that end as you do. So I think that's great that, a great tip to mention is think about those blocks you're going to hit. Think about those people that are not going to be happy about change, because there's always people that aren't happy about change. And so kind of planning that out ahead of time and how you're going to combat that.
Yeah, and usually if you involve people in that process and involve them in the implementation, that's usually what leads to success. And helping have them be part of those trainings, those committee meetings, all those kind of things. So they have buy-in to what they're going to be using.
Yeah, that's great.
What made me love CRM is really dive into the technology and understand how it works, so that I don't have to think of what I'm doing. It's a little bit like typing. You type and you don't think of where you put your fingers because you know how to type. And so if you can get CRM to be part of you and feel comfortable with the interface, and that takes effort and time. It takes effort and time to learn an interface and feel it and kind of soak it. So work at it and work hard at it, especially in the beginning. Don't let that tool be there and think, oh, I'm going to learn it later. There's so many things that make CRM so much more powerful than what you learn in your first training lesson. Mm-hmm. That makes you like the software more and more. Mm-hmm. So my tip would be to a salesperson is dive into it, learn and use it. And the more you use it, the more you'll trust your data that are there. The more you use it, the more you'll have history on what was your last call and what did I say to my customer there. And write your notes right away. Use it real time. Don't wait till the evening to start opening up your CRM because you didn't want to do it earlier. Mm-hmm. Do it as soon as possible. And the CRM will work with you. It will prompt you to call at the right time. It's just a phenomenal follow-up tool. And when you do that and you enter the data, you can then leverage this for marketing, who sends the emails and the reminders that you exist. And every now and then, often you get a call back by a customer you didn't call because You don't always have the time to call everybody, but you have the time to email everybody from CRM.
Mm-hmm.
And having that interactivity and knowing that a person is more interested in your product by looking at where they clicked on your email blast, for example, is also a great source of leads for you and communication with the customer. CRM is a communication tool. It helps communicate internally within our company. We have 11 employees, and it helps with our customers, with our vendors, with just about everybody. It doesn't have to be for prospects only. It can be anybody you can put in the CRM. A networking person who has ideas on where you might find leads, they should be in the CRM. And the CRM should tell you where you've met them and how you connect and how many kids they have, maybe. Anything about what makes you connected with that person the next time you talk to them.
Yeah. And, I'm just going to do one kind of follow-up to both of your tips that popped to my mind is that what kind of tips do you have for someone that is trying to get employees to use that software? So, Fred, you kind of mentioned dive into that software, use that software. But in order for that CRM, to really be productive for the entire firm or for the entire company, you need everybody diving in. And so what tips do you typically give companies that you're introducing a CRM to get everyone on their team to actually dive in?
So the first tip I will give is the person who pays for this gets involved in it as well. You cannot have a CEO of a company not using the CRM. And it doesn't have to use the CRM the same way, although it could, and it probably would benefit too. But make sure that the CEO or the sales manager or the VP of sales, they look at the results. They look at the dashboards and the reports, because what gets measured gets done. And what better way to know what's going on just by looking at a dashboard or a KPI, something that is a message to all the other users. I'm not the only one here.
Yeah.
Everyone is using the CRM. And then publish those dashboards. That's part of being accountable. The dashboards may show you how much sales is done, how much activity is done.
Time tracking.
All the time tracking. If they are consultants, how much time do they spend being billable or not billable?
This is going to make me sound really nerdy, but even internally, I look at our service dashboard to see if I'm the most billable person that day versus someone else. So it compares user, and it says, how are they spending their time and who's being billable versus non-billable, and looking at that as you enter in your activities and you review that as a team. It makes people want to enter that in, because then it also becomes a conversation of what customers are you working with, right? So you can discuss who you worked with that week, and it shows you that in that kind of area. So entering that in becomes a bigger conversation of how are we helping everybody. And as a user, if Madison's entering in all hers and I'm not, I'm going to feel really bad. So I'm going to go in there and enter that all in if we're reviewing that as a team. So
no, that makes sense. So, we talked a lot about the CRM side. I want to also touch on the digital marketing side and how that also plays a role with your CRM. So on the digital marketing side, the first thing I want to ask is, what are your top 3 tips of how digital marketing can be used for small business?
It's my favorite. So I work a lot with small businesses and large businesses on digital marketing and integrating it with CRM. And my top tips really are find your target market first, then match your message to your target market. And that sounds so simple, but it's so complex in a lot of ways. Because if you're not having good open rates, interaction rates, or engagements with your customers, it's because you're not giving them information that they want. So you need to be looking at your reports to see if your target market is well defined and if your message matches that. So you need to look at those reports, see if they're having good interactions. And if not, you need to either tweak who you're sending it to or tweak what you're saying to them. And that's across the board, whether it's email, website, social, anything. It's the most basic thing, but it can be the most complex thing to get right. And that's my top tip for anyone. When we start out, that's what we assess first.
Yeah, and so how do you know what a good rate is? So, I think when you talk about, let's say, emails, you're talking about open rates, or let's talk about a social media ad and click-through rates. How do you know what you're comparing against?
Yeah, so email is a little bit easier than social because a lot plays into social. So let's go with email. For email, what I look for a baseline for a customer when we're looking at what they're sending out is at least a 10% open rate. That's minimum bare bones 10% open rate. And then minimum bare bones is a 3 to 4% click-through rate. We want to see that customer is getting that kind of interaction with that list. If they're not getting that, we need to either further define the list and match up the messages better, or we need to change that around. We'll have people come in that have like a 0.5% open rate on some of their lists. Some of that can attribute to that they have a really high bounce rate, meaning their data is bad. So if you're sending out an email and you have over a 10% bounce rate, you should really be looking at your data and cleaning up who you're sending that email to, because that means 10% of who you're sending that email to isn't even getting your email. Then the last metric we look at are unsubscribes. So that's people that are opting out of your email. You want to see that figure be below 3%. If it's over 3%, a lot of email providers, you have it over 3% for opt-out or over 10% for bounce rate, they're going to start to question your sends and ask you where you're getting your list from, because you're having a lot of people either not receive it or a lot of people asking not to get it. So those are, I usually start with email. On engagement on social, there's a lot that plays into that, because it's, are you spending for social or are you doing it for free? So those are some of the questions that I would get into with someone on what we want to see there. But as far as social, it's not the number of people that you have, it's the engagement that you have. Are people liking your posts? Are they commenting? Are they interacting with the information you're putting out there? A lot of people think email marketing is going away, but it's not. And you can use your email marketing to let you know what content people care about and then use that on social, because that's a lot easier to report off of. And you have a targeted group that you're using it on. You're already your customers. So you can use that to grab that from and figure out what messages you want to use other places.
Oh yeah, I mean that makes total sense. And so you mentioned kind of email providers and social. When you're working with a small business, what are some of the software that you use, whether it's on the social media side, the marketing side, the digital marketing side, or the email side? What are some softwares that you use for small business?
Yeah, I'm a total nerd, so I use a ton of them. And I'm certified in a bunch of them. For email, we work with MailChimp. A lot of customers like to use that because they have a free version. So we can start out with MailChimp. I tend to like Constant Contact a little bit better because they don't make you have such a strict opt-in process where you have to prove where people are opting in from. So we use MailChimp, Constant Contact, and then we use some heavy hitters like Pardot, Click Dimensions, which HubSpot, those all have marketing automation with them that are more advanced than what's included in MailChimp or Constant Contact. But we work with all of those. On the social media side, we worked with clients on all the big social media players, YouTube, LinkedIn, all of those. But we really, and if you get anything from this podcast, go get the free version of Hootsuite. So Hootsuite allows you to schedule out your social media posts to multiple pages. So you don't have to go in and go into LinkedIn and schedule and put out posts. Go into Facebook, put in a post. Go into Twitter, put in a post. You can just go and schedule everything through Hootsuite.
Oh, that's great.
So you can just go out, put all of your posts together for the month and be done. And that's what we usually work with customers to do. So it's not as time intensive.
Yeah, I also want to add that on the marketing side, it's important to sync the data from lists in your CRM to whatever email platform you're using. And we do use some software to make sure that the synchronization occurs properly, so that you only have to put the contact in the CRM and it's synced with your contacts in the email platform.
Yeah, think back all the email results, all the different results back into CRM, so then you can actually have sales and marketing sharing the information. So we do a lot of work with customers on that to tie that together.
Yeah, and that's really where you start to see everything come together. And I think that's a lot of the hard times when you're talking about different systems, having a CRM, having a marketing system, is that a lot of times people don't know that they integrate together or don't know how they integrate together. And I think that can cause a lot of frustration when you're logging into 8 different things to try to get a report on sales or something like that. And so that key of integration is very important for these businesses.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
Now, so you talked about some email marketing and making sure that you have the right message and things like that. What are some top tips that you have for small businesses to just get incredible email marketing results?
Yeah, so the thing that I walk into whenever I start with a customer and I assess their email marketing is, again, making sure they have a good target market, and then making sure that their message matches. And then lastly is we have a couple of different tools that we have. We have a cleaner that we use that we can actually assess your list and actually test it and tell you what email addresses are good or bad. So we can give you that information before we even send it.
Okay.
So that you have a good list to begin with. Then when I assess their actual email template, this is a really simple thing to do, and it sounds crazy, but make sure you have every image in your email needs to be linked to a web page to get you good click-through rate. So if you have an image, if it's the header image, if it's any image inside of your email, that should be linked. And as soon as I do that for a customer, their click-through rate doubles easily as soon as we do that. The other thing that people should consider doing is actually putting video in their email. Video is one of the top clicked on items in an email. So it can be any video from YouTube that you guys have up there. If you make a short video, video does really well in email, which is kind of surprising, but it does. Having that in there will also improve your click-through rate. Something else customers should consider is their subject lines, personalizing their subject lines, so putting in merge fields into your subject line that either includes the company name, that person's name, and then lastly, who is the email coming from? So are you sending it from marketing@toplineresults.com? Are you sending it from Fred@toplineresults.com? You're more likely to interact with the email when you know who it's coming from. So It's all really simple things that you can implement, but usually have really big results. The thing that comes back with the owner portion is making sure that you have your contacts assigned to the right people so that we can show that that's who it came from, so you can segment your lists right. So that's something that we use CRM for a lot, to do that.
I don't know if this is true anymore, but years ago they used to say that you should send your emails on a Tuesday. I seem to get more email on a Tuesday than ever now.
Yeah, that's funny because I've seen that too. You know, or when we're sending stuff, we send it on a Tuesday over a Friday for sure.
Yeah. I usually stay away from Fridays, especially in the summer.
Yeah, that's great.
At 10:30 at night.
10:30 at night. No emails at 10:30 at night.
Yeah, you're not going to have too many people reading emails at that time. So when it comes to social media, and let's say you're a small business that's looking to build kind of brand awareness in an area or on social media, what are some tips that you have to help them start to build that?
Yeah, so I usually, when I meet with the clients or I've spoken at local chambers, a lot of business will be like, I don't get money from social media. I go, you're right, you don't. But you look really old school when you don't have a social media presence. Mm-hmm. It's where we're going in the future. It's how people are connecting. It also gives you awareness with Google Analytics to bring up your rankings for your website, especially if you're posting and referring back to your website on social media. So it's something that's really important for you to build basically brand awareness with. The tips that I have for customers is really you need to get a social media calendar going. So you sit down once a month, you write out your posts, And then you use a tool like Hootsuite so you can schedule out those posts, because if you're not putting out information, you're not staying top of mind. The other thing with that is it can't just be all about selling, right? It should be informational too. So you need to be sharing information, tips, tricks, you can be resharing information from other sources, but it should not just be all about you. It should be how you can help that person that's following you on social media.
Yeah, that's great. And do you recommend putting out, you kind of mentioned not just selling, but putting out content pieces, building a blog, and kind of tracing and tracking everything back to that piece as well?
Yes, exactly. Yes, you need to really build up either your blogs, your website pages, your tips, even your podcasts, your YouTube channels, all of those kinds of things. And I would have that mostly housed on your website and refer to your website to get that information, because that's going to help you get some better rankings as a backlink. So you should look at that too.
Got it. And, when it comes to software technology, all industries are changing. But when it comes to digital marketing and the software in that industry in itself, what do you see in the future for digital marketing and how it relates to business?
So this is a contentious topic that going to be, we were talking about this internally. I think it's going to go much more towards text messaging in the future. I think that the generation that's coming up before me is very heavy into text messaging. I foresee in the next 10, 20, 30 years, eventually text messaging overtaking a lot of the email marketing that we do. And having it be a lot more automated. And we can do that today with the CRM system. So you can do some integration with text messaging, where you can actually have that connected to the contact record and send out those texts based on interactions that you're having. So you see a lot of the giant retailers are starting to do that with promotions, coupons, but I think it's going to become a lot more like you go to Starbucks and you ran out of money on your Starbucks card. You're going to get a text message. Would you like to fill up your card? It's going to become more of those interactions based on actions. And you're going to have a lot more text messaging, as well as some social media, some of those ads that follow you throughout the websites. But I really think it's going to go through text messaging is where we're going to head into this.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Text.
Yep, I think it's going to happen that way.
Yeah, and I can see that. I mean, you're seeing everyone starting to use text messaging. So I think back in the day, when I first started text messaging, I'd text message my parents and I get nothing back. And so now it's like they're texting me. I got emojis in the messages from them. It's like a whole different world that now everyone's kind of starting to catch on to it.
Yeah.
I remember the first text when I was traveling to Europe. And I saw those kids texting. I said, why don't they just call each other? And in the US, it had not caught on yet. It was like a few months behind or something. And then I saw my kid at the table. I said, what are you doing? And he had his arm behind his back, and he had a flip phone with numbers. He was texting with his thumb blindly without even looking at his phone behind his back at the table. I said, I guess it's here too now. Why don't you just call? But yeah, now texting is huge. You go to the restaurant, what do? You give your phone number, and then they text you, and then they have your number.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'll be interested to see how that evolves.
Yeah, it's totally not going to happen overnight, but I think in the next 10, 20 years, we're going to see a lot more of that happening for sure. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Just to kind of wrap up the digital marketing piece, I want to touch a little bit on websites. And so why should a small business owner, first off, care about a website and having website presence? And what are some metrics that they can be looking at to ensure that their website is worth it? Or how can they tell that they're actually getting activity and monitor that activity on their website?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So your website, when I meet with a client, I tell them that's like your online resume for your business. So that's you putting out there who you are, what you do, how to contact you, right? So that's your resume, essentially, that's out there. You can get Google Analytics for free, and you can install that and have that available for you to use for free. And if you're not doing that today, definitely should be doing that. But once you have that installed, the things that you should be looking at are what pages are people actually visiting, how many visits you have, what trends you have with your visits, and even more important so is where is the traffic coming from? What are your referrals? So are they coming from social media? Are they coming from another website where you were posted? How are you getting traffic to your site? And how is that happening? As well as your keywords. Where are you stacking up in your keywords? So keywords are what people are typing in when they search for you and seeing what's actually bringing people to your site. For a lot of businesses, adding in keywords for location can help you and actually helps a lot with your rankings. You also should take a look too if you claimed your listing for your actual physical address for your business on your Google listing too. So you want to take a look at that as well because that can help your rankings. But definitely get Google Analytics, look at that data because then you can use a lot of that to also craft some of your social media messaging, your email marketing messaging. So from the email marketing side, you're going to get what you're pushing out and get that feedback, right? Whereas the website is what's coming from the outside getting pushed towards you. So use both of that piece of metric and information to kind of craft what's important to people because you're getting that real-time information. So you want to use all that data to try to craft what you might want to do for blog posts, what you might want to do for videos, content, podcasts, and really use that feedback to give people what they want. Because that will only give you better interaction.
And I would add to that when you've got the CRM and you've got the right digital platform, now this may be a little bit more of an evolved digital platform, but if they go to your website and they are in your CRM, we can actually see how many times they've gone to your website inside the CRM.
To the contact.
To the contact, at the contact level. So when you look at a contact, you say, hey, this guy has been at my such and such page multiple times in the last 48 hours. Mm-hmm. Now, that's very precious information for a salesperson. Mm-hmm. In fact, they do this with proposal. You can send a proposal from your CRM and they're links. And so the salesperson knows when the proposal was open, how many times it was open, and when it was open. So you can actually monitor what is going on with that proposal. And the same for your website. Mm-hmm. But you must have the CRM tied to the marketing platform, which is tied to this to the website. So you must have all that integrated so that you can have those very precious information pieces to sell more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's crazy how all the connections that you have, and even email marketing without a website is tough because you even mentioned if you have a header image that takes you back to your website, but if your website's garbage, they might take your website and say, well, their website's garbage, so I don't trust the company, so I'm going to delete that email. And so it's just crazy how much circling back you have, and then you mentioned taking the marketing to the CRM, and so all that process is extremely intense, and so I think that it's good to know all this stuff, and what we've talked about on both the digital marketing and the CRM side, I think is great information. But because of the complexity behind it, I want to kind of learn a little bit more about what you guys do. Obviously, this is your area, this is your focus. So explain to me a little bit about who Topline Results is, kind of what you do, who you serve. Give us some background information about your company.
So we've been in business for 20 years this year in mm-hmm. April, and we're celebrating that soon. When we started, I was on my own, and I actually started a business in Texas. And I started a business because of the love I had for technology and the leverage I had in my sales. We went from 1999 to 2000, I came to Wisconsin. And I said, after a year in my basement, I'm out of here. And I was. I rented a small little 550 square foot place in Milwaukee, enough to hire somebody who would help me with what I did not like to do too much. One was the accounting. Two was all the technical stuff I had to do to make the contact managers sync databases, I explained. And that's when I really was able to get the company going, because I was leveraging myself. I was leveraging myself with other people and their time. And I could specialize in selling. We then were very successful and recognized by the software company as the top reseller of that software. That's when we dove into the deep, more complex CRM world at the time, which was SalesLogix. Then came the web revolution because the web got so fast. Then the Microsoft came in and the Salesforce came in. So we got on board with those brands because we like good brands because they provide good products and reliable products. And so we were able to grow our company to be more of what we are today and divide and conquer on the expertise that we needed. So we now have a marketing department, we have a technical service department, we have a person who does the process consulting, and all those specialty makes us a very strong entity, Topline Results, to address the multitude and complexity of CRM when we engage with a new client.
I think what we do too that makes us successful is, you're right, it is very complex, but we translate that complexity into something that's simple, easy to digest, and we do it in phases so it doesn't feel super complex, right? So we don't just dive in head first and say, you guys are going to have everything integrated and you're going to do all these things and all these workflows and everything's going to be magic. We start out, here's a contact. This is how you enter into contact. Let's get that going. Here's how you enter into activity. Let's get that going. Then you slowly build up. We do phased approach so that it's not everything at once. It's small bites to eat the elephant and to get it all the way. So our job, I know I'm doing a good job when someone looks at me and I goes, that's so easy. Anyone could do that, Jackie. Then I go, oh, I did my job because it's not easy. So,
yeah.
Yeah, what's simple often is not easy.
Yes.
We know that.
Yes.
And what Jackie's referring to is our methodology for implementation. We call that an agile approach to implementation. So we start with small increments of improvements and we circle back.
Yeah.
And we do that multiple times. We don't do 2-day trainings.
No.
It's just not a good idea, but we do small little bites of training and we do it over time. The relationship we have with our customer today is vastly different from the relationship we used to have 20 years ago, where it was in and out, and then that was it. We had done the implementation, we put it on the server, they had access, and we did a 2-day training. That is not the way we do anymore. We do implementations that are done over time. And we have long-term contracts with our customer, and they pay subscription to what we do because we are engaged with our customer just about every week.
Got it. And so what is your type of customers as far as size-wise, as far as industry? Who are you serving as far as clients?
Everyone.
Yeah.
I know that's not a good answer, but I have one gentleman that, like I said, is starting a brand new business to hundreds of users and everything in between. We primarily, if we're talking about industries, manufacturers, professional services, financial, we work a lot with. Those are some areas that we do a lot of business with, but we serve really outside industries that you wouldn't expect, either oil and gas, all over the place. But those are the ones that we have a lot of concentration in. But I think that's because of where we're located in Wisconsin. That's a big concentration in industry in this area. But we work with everybody in all different sizes.
It's a little bit when you go to Vegas, they don't look at you on how much money you spend, but on the propensity of money you're going to spend. When we look at our customer, there may be 1 or 2 users, but their propensity to grow is enormous.
And they need them to grow.
And when you've been in business for 20 years, you realize that the 1 or 2 users of 20 years ago is now a larger entity and a very, very good customer. Go to Vegas, they send you invites for free. I know that because my brother is a big gambler. And when he goes for free. They put in a big suite, not because he spends money, but because his propensity of spending at first. In fact, he wins often. So I don't know why they give him free rooms, but they do. And the analogy is a little bit out there, but it is true. We do take care of the small and the bigger customer. We like our small customer even better. I've worked with very large companies where we got paid 120 days later, and that's not really good business cash flow.
That's tough.
That's tough. Yeah. So we like the small approach where we can have a conversation with the decision maker rather than committees of decision makers.
Awesome. So where can people find you? What's your website? Any kind of other social media, things like that?
Yeah, our website's toplineresults.com. So it's TOPLINERESULTS.com. We're also on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and we also have quite the YouTube channel that has a lot of different tips and a lot of different demo videos of all the software we talked about today. So if you just put in Topline Results on YouTube, we'll come up. We have lots of videos out there that people can check out as well.
It's Topline Results in one word.com.
Yeah.
Got it. And what I'll do is I'll have you guys send some links over. I'll include them in the show notes so that anyone listening can easily find them in there. Guys, I really appreciate you guys coming out. We talked about some really great stuff, and I think that our audience and listeners are enjoying it. So I want to thank you guys for coming on, and hopefully we can connect and dive a little bit deeper into some of these topics even further down the road.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Nice talking to you.
Likewise. Now, one last thing before I go. Don't forget to check out our podcast website at www.taxsavingspodcast.com. That's taxsavingspodcast.com. This is a great resource to go and check out our most recent episodes, as well as find extra items if you want to take what we discuss here and dive deeper. Again, also join our Facebook group where we share tons of value, and you have the opportunity to bring situations you are faced with to the table, and we'll help you out in that Facebook group, and other business owners will support you as well. You can join by simply searching in Facebook for the Small Business Tax Secrets group. Again, it's a Facebook group called Small Business Tax Secrets, and there should be a group that pops up that you can join.
This has been another episode of the Small Business Tax Savings Podcast from the team at Jetro and Associates. If you have any questions, feel free to email them. tax@jetrotax.com. We have packages for small business owners starting at just $75 a month. If you enjoyed our podcast, please take the time out to give us a 5-star review in iTunes or wherever you listen. This helps us to bring you useful tips to help you grow your small business. Thanks for listening and have a great day.